everybody, it's Sarah, and it's the beginning of October, so that means it is time to talk about what I read in September, which in fact wasn't a lot. So this will probably maybe be quite a short wrap-up. But before we get into the books, let's talk about stats. As always, I have my stats from Storygraph, and so let's get into it. I read a total of 4 books in September and a total of about 1,500 pages. So not only did I read less books than I usually do, those books on average were also shorter, I think, than my usual average. The moods the books were adventurous, reflective, mysterious, emotional, dark, and challenging. So I had some quite dark books. In September, a third of the books I read this month were slow-paced, and then 2/3 were medium-paced, and that only gets us to 3 books, to be honest. So I guess one of the books I read, like, the users of Storygraph haven't, you know, defined the pacing of that book yet. Who knows? Anyway, page number, I had a quarter of the books under 300 pages and then 3/4 between 300 and 500 pages. All the books were fiction. The genres were fantasy, romance, and horror. Then I had 2 books that I read digitally and 2 books that I read in print. And my average rating was actually really good. I think this might be the first month where my average rating is over 4 stars. But my average rating was 4.13 star, with 1 book each of a 3 star, a 4 star, a 4.5, and a 5 star rating. And then in terms of inclusivity stats, I had 1 book by a BIPOC author. I had 2 books at least by queer authors with queer characters, and then I had 1 book with mental health rep and 1 book that's just a lot of different things where I'm not exactly sure if I would, you know, define that as any specific rep. But with the stats out of the way, let's get into the books. And first I have Baba Yaga Laid an Egg by Dubravka Ugresic. I probably butchered that name. I should, as an Austrian, probably know how to pronounce Croatian last names. However, it can sometimes still be a struggle. Anyway, this was my read around the world, not for September actually, but for back in August, I believe. I had Croatia because I am quite a bit behind, and I might actually skip one of the books one of the countries, the one that I had for September, because I right now don't have the brain to find a book for Hawaii. Unless you have any recommendations, then leave them in the comments down below. But I will still read a book. No, Hawaii was for October. September was Cameroon. So I will look for a book for Cameroon, but I will probably skip Hawaii, also because there have been a few months this year so far where I read 2 books for Read Around the World. Anyway, I might skip one of the books. But back to this one. This was from Croatia, and this author is actually one of the most well-known and most prolific and most important female authors for Croatia. And it's a very strange book because you have like about 200 pages of story. And that story follows different women. There's not like, it's one of those books where there is a plot, but there also kind of isn't, and it's kind of hard to summarize. But you follow multiple different women that are kind of, in their own specific ways, metaphors for Baba Yaga, or like allegories on Baba Yaga. It's like they're not, both of those were the wrong words, but I think you get what I mean. They're like supposed to be Baba Yaga in a way, but it's also not really like that, because this is very much not like fabulism or magical realism or anything. And then the last 100 pages is written like a non-fiction, and it's talking about the different symbolisms of the Baba Yaga myth, and also how similar myths to Baba Yaga exist all around the world, and those myths also, or those figures also, have similar symbolism to Baba Yaga, and how that symbolism appears within the book. But it's also written as if it's not written by the author, but then at the end you once again get like the author talking and like saying sorry for the sudden switch up in like the style of the book. And then I'm pretty sure it's on purpose, but I'm not 100% sure. So if someone has read this book, please tell me. But the book literally ends in the middle of a sentence. It's very weird. Anyway, I did really enjoy it. It was like a really fast read, and I especially enjoyed like the non-fiction part at the end. It was very interesting. I can definitely recommend this book, and I ended up giving it still 3 stars because it's kind of, it's in this territory where it's like, I enjoyed it, but it probably won't stay with me for a long time, and so like, it's kind of hard to give this a rating. So yes, or did I give it 3.5 stars? I think I gave it 3 stars, right? Let me look that up very quickly. Yeah, I gave it 3 stars. So that's the first book that I wanted to talk about. Then, since we're already at that, let's just... Oh, something fell out. I guess this country won't be picked for November, because as always I am not picking a country for this month. I'm picking one for next month, so I have enough time to find and order a book, because sometimes it takes like 3 to 4 weeks for these books to get to me, because they are not that easy to get. So I have one right here, and for November the country I have is Hungary, which is, it's not the birth country of my grandma, it's the birth country of my great-grandpa. But my grandmother had the Hungarian, like she was born in Austria, but she had the Hungarian citizenship only until the 50s, I believe. So yeah, we'll see what I can find for Hungary, which should be quite easy. It's kind of like Croatia, to be honest, and a lot of Eastern European countries, because of the history that Austria or the Austrian monarchy had with these countries. There's quite a few of the authors from those countries that are being translated into German also, so I'm sure I'll have a somewhat easy time finding one. Anyway, let's continue on. Next I have my 4-star, which is Den of Wolves by Juliet Marillet. This is the 3rd and final book in the Blackthorn and Grimm series. The series follows the titular Blackthorn and Grimm, who are 2 people who were imprisoned. Blackthorn is the actual main character of the story, although Grimm also is a POV character, and Blackthorn was kind of part of a rebellion, or the trying to rebelling against a local laird, and her husband actually was one of the leaders. For that, her husband and child were killed, and Blackthorn was thrown in prison, and one day she is supposed to be executed. However, on the day before her execution, she is visited by a Fey Lord, and the Lord gives her a choice. She can leave vengeance behind. She can leave behind the laird who has wronged her, move to the north and live there for 7 years. She's not allowed to come back south and to search for vengeance against this person who has wronged her. However, she also, when she is there or on the way there, she has to agree to help every person who asks her for help. And so Blackthorn agrees in the hopes of getting out of this deal, and Grimm was in the same prison with her, and he gets out with her, and the 2 of them travel north, and then each of the 3 books deals with them helping another person with a lot of times some supernatural stuff. So there's a lot of fae-ness in this. However, if you pick this up in the thoughts or hopes that it's like very much like the, you know, falling in love with a Fey Lord fantasy romance type stories, you will be disappointed. Because while there is Fey magic, it's very much very mythologically accurate Fey, if that makes sense. So yeah, I love the series. I will probably film a series review. I love Blackthorn. Blackthorn is an older female main character. Like, she is at least in her mid-30s. She's old enough that, like, her son that died at the time of the series would be in his early to later teens, like somewhere between 14 and 16, because also there is some time passing between the books. But I think in this one, it's said that, like, he would be 16 years at the time of this book. So, you know, if she got her son at 18, which I don't assume she did, we're never really told how old she is exactly, she would be like around 34, but she's probably between 36 and 38, which, you know, still isn't old. But in terms of a fantasy female main character who has gone through a lot already, who has been a mother already, it is certainly older. And also the way she carries herself, she also could be in her 40s just as well. I just love Blackthorn. She is also not a naive character. She doesn't trust anyone. She has a very hard time opening up to people. And I also love the story between her and Grimm, which very much is slow burn. There's not really sexual tension. Like, the tension between the two of them is of two people who have been incredibly hurt and who are slowly starting to trust other people again and starting to trust themselves in caring about people again. Absolutely beautiful. Also, this is one of the only books where I'm like completely okay with 2 first-person POVs. There's usually 3 POVs in each book, 2 first-person POVs, and then, which are Blackthorn and Grimm, and then you have a 3rd-person POV from whichever person they agreed to help. And Blackthorn and Grimm, like, the two of them are written so differently, their voices. I usually know within the first sentence of a chapter who is the one who has the POV right now, even without you obviously, usually at the beginning of the chapter, get like the name, but even without reading that, I usually instantly know who it is. And so yeah, I very much enjoyed this trilogy. And I think the 3rd book actually was my favorite, and I think it's also the one I rated the highest. So yes, definitely love it. And actually, since this was one that I pulled from my series TBR jar a few months back, I only got around to finishing it now. So let's just right away pick my new series TBR, although I haven't kept up with these pulls for a few months now, so let's see. Also, there's so many series I need to add to this because there's so many books that came out in the last few months. But I have The Last Binding by Freya Marske. Let's see if I can get around to it, because for that, to finish this, I only need to finish the 3rd book. But to finish this, I need to finally get my library card to be working again, which hasn't been working for about a year now. And then I'll get that from the library, because I do not want to buy the last book in the series. I only ever owned the 1st one, and I unhauled that one. But yeah, continuing on, I was looking for a next book to pick up, but there are no more books to pick up because the last 2 ones were arcs that I read, although I have already ordered both of these books. One even before I read the arc because I trust the author, and the other one instantly the second after I finished the arc. And the second one is the one we'll talk about now. It's Coal Gets in Your Veins by Kat Rector, which is it the 1st book in a series? There is like a note at the end of a story of like the story of these 2 people will continue. However, it also could be a standalone. But as I said, I had an arc of this. This is a vampire book, and it's like, it's so good. I already filmed a review for this, which you'll probably get whenever I get around to editing it, so either next week or the week after, so I will try to keep short. But basically you follow 2 characters the female character whose name I forgot again, and the vampire whose name is Spencer, who, according to the author, is inspired by Spike and Astarion. However, I can see neither of them really in them, because Spike and Astarion are both very like bad boy type characters and like evil type characters to a certain degree, or I can make him better type characters. Spencer does drink blood and he kills people, and he doesn't feel bad about that because it's just like, it's what he has to do as a vampire. However, Spencer is a fucking golden retriever. I love Spencer so much. Also, both of the main characters are bi. I mean, the female main character is questioning. She comes from a very small town and has never really considered whether or not she's bi. Spencer very much is out and proud and flamboyant and amazing and bisexual. And so you have our female main character who lives in an abusive marriage. However, at the beginning of the story, she is not quite ready yet to admit that to herself. It's more like she feels like this is just a lot that she has drawn in her life, and while she does know that the relationship that she's in is abusive, she also knows that within the small town that she's from, she's gonna have a very hard time leaving him, and if she wants to leave him, she would have to leave everything that she knows behind. Spencer is about 200 years old. He's a vampire, and he's moving to this town which is full of generational trauma of being an old coal town, and he is moving to this town to basically torment himself because everyone in this town tastes disgusting, and so he won't drink from anyone. And the reason why they taste disgusting is because like the coal almost literally has like accumulated in their blood over the generations. And so the two of them meet, and through meeting Spencer, our main character is just slowly starting to decide that she deserves better than has become her lot in life. And it's really warming and beautiful. And there was a little bit of something like in the climax where I was like, I'm not sure if I'm a big fan of that or if I would have preferred the story to be different. However, I also don't really see how the story could be different, but I'm talking about all of that in the review, so I will leave it at that for now. I just definitely recommend the story. I love Spencer. I love Spencer as like a vampire stereotype. It's like, or a subversion on the vampire stereotype, and it's just amazing. And then the last book I want to talk about is The City in Glass, which is by Nivo. It's her novel that comes out this year, or just came out, I think, 2 days ago or something. Actually, both of the books, the last books, came out on the 1st of October, I think. 1st and 2nd or something. No, 1st of October. Yeah, I think so. Anyway, Nivo is, as a lot of you might know, one of my favorite writers of all time. She has one of my, if not my, just like favorite writing style in modern writing, period. And while I do love the Singing Hills series, I don't feel like her writing really shines in that series. In this book, however, it's just gorgeous. Like, I'm sorry, just let me read you one single sentence of the book. The sword he carried was nothing more than a will sharpened, and death ran after him like a child trying to keep up. Oh, it's so good, it's so crunchy, I love it. I love Nivo's writing so much. And it's really hard to tell you what the story is about, because it's like, once again, it's a lot more themes than like concrete plot. You follow Vitrine, who is a demon, and she has kind of, I'm gonna say, created this city called Azrael. And one day at the very beginning of the book, I think within the first chapter, there's angels coming and destroying the city. And Vitrine, in her grief, takes part of herself and throws it at one of the angels to harm this angel. And this piece of herself becomes lodged within the angel, which is why he comes back again and again to Vitrine for reasons that are not necessarily clear at the beginning of the story, aside from that he has been cast out by the other angels and is now no longer divine in the way he was before. And so you follow the two of them kind of slowly rebuilding Azrael, while also being told stories from Azrael as it was before, and from people that Vitrine knew and loved and wrote in her book, which she has this book where she writes everything that she loves in there. And so the book is kind of the stories of Azrael as it was, Azrael as it is becoming, and the dance between the angel and the demon, like kind of circling each other and their dynamic. And it's so gorgeous, it's so beautiful, it's so amazingly written. I loved the ending especially. It was so good, literally so good. And yeah, I could just, like, everyone read Nevo, literally everyone. And so with that, once again, my wrap up got longer than I intended. However, if you have read any of the books, leave your thoughts on them in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, maybe think about giving me a thumbs up and also maybe subscribing. All the links to my social media as well as to my book club are also linked down below. This month we are reading Blood Over Bright Heaven by M.L. Wang. So join us if you want. And with all of that, I hope I'll see you quite soon. Bye!